Hello and welcome to episode 1351 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Thursday, November 21st. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, how are you? You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. There you go. How's it going?
We are in the middle of what is called a bomb cyclone. Um,
I've heard of that before. Not that you're in a current one, but I've heard about the bomb cyclone, right? You said?
yeah,
Yeah.
which is like just a shit ton of water just everywhere. The town or the city I live in, um, we got 7 inches of rain yesterday.
Oh my.
It's supposed to rain for the next 10 days. Um,
Oh my God.
and it's crazy because for those who don't know, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. The average rainfall around the entire Bay Area was 1 inch yesterday, and my city got 7. So yeah, I legitimately have a sump pump running in my side yard right now, and it can't
Jeez.
keep up with the flooding. I have to go out after this and buy another one. Um, because yeah, I mean it is just so my entire yard is so flooded right now.
That
So
is
hopefully I don't lose
absolutely
power
bananas.
during this, but
Right.
yeah, it has been really crazy. This is not casual weather.
It's not casual. There's
This
nothing
is not
casual about
casual
that.
about that. And shout
Uh-uh.
out to the person on Reddit who I joined Reddit and they're like, I don't believe this is the real Justin Mason. Finish the sentence. Casual blank.
That's
It's like,
so good. I laughed so hard when I saw that. I absolutely love it. Casual weather, indeed. We do have some casual weather. It's relatively nice. You know, there's a little chill in the air, especially for Texas. Pretty casual. But we're back. Took a nice little hiatus there, and not even a full hiatus, but just some time off there for October, November. And then honestly, we would have been back maybe 2 weeks ago, but you got
yeah,
absolutely destroyed
yeah.
after FPAS, First Pitch Arizona. You got a bout of COVID, it took you down. Glad that you're back and ready to go. And we got some news in between, obviously some baseball news that we're going to get into, but some Fangraphs news, and we'll have him on soon to talk with him. But
Yeah.
Joe Arico is joining the team, and I could not be more excited for Joe to join us. We got to hang out with him at First Pitch Arizona. Been kind of working on this, and boom, it's official. He's joining the crew. So look for Joe Arico to get going. We're working on rankings. We're going to have that out early December, which is right around the corner. Oh my goodness.
I
But yeah,
know.
we got some news and notes to talk about. It'll be a shorter episode today, but we just want to get back in the swing of things and talk some damn baseball because you know it never stops for us. We take our little October, November break, but even during then, we're either watching the playoffs, doing a little studying, doing a little research. You start your projections, and now we start to turn that spigot back on and just go crazy again. So let's start with some really exciting news of a youngster coming over from Japan, Roki Sasaki. And I emphasize his youth there because he is coming over at an early age, similar to what we saw with one Shohei Ohtani. And what that means is that he will be under those same sorts of rules. He's only 23 years old, Sasaki is. Flame throwing righty from overseas. Had a little bit of a down year. This is funny, by the way. Down year, 235 ERA, 104 whip. And I'm not even joking. It was a down year because when you go
Yeah.
178, 075 in the year before that, all of a sudden 235, 105, or 104 actually looks like a down year. But he did have some little health issue too. So there is some, I don't want to say a black cloud, I don't want to say a rain cloud hanging over him, but there's like a little bit of uncertainty where if he had come over coming into last year, it would have been over the moon. The bottom line though is with Sasaki, doesn't matter how much you love him, you can only pay so much because MLB classifies players who sign out of a foreign league before they turn 25 as amateurs. This from MLB Trade Rumors. Those players can only sign a minor league contract and are subject to a hard capped bonus limit. Whichever team signs Sasaki is allowed to add him to the MLB roster by opening day. He isn't going to start the season in AAA regardless, but he won't be able to sign for huge money. And after he signs, he'll be subject to the same 6-year control window that applies to players. And they also kind of keep tabs on a potential sketchy deal where you sign him for this little deal and then you give him like 10 years, 100 million or whatever. Like he could sign an early deal, but it has to be representative, right? You can't just use this method to get him a cheap deal. So he is going to come over relatively cheap. with the idea that he could be the next big thing, though. Where do you come out on Sasaki now that it's guaranteed he's coming over? Is he somebody that you'd be drafting in the winter? Are you going to wait for the shoe to drop on where he goes? What are your general thoughts on Sasaki?
My fear is that he's just going to be too expensive. Especially I think a lot of people, including myself, feel like, hey, he's probably going to end up with the Dodgers. They're,
Right.
they
It's
have
just
the
such a
most,
safe bet.
yeah. And like, I think they have the most bonus pool money too, if I'm remembering
Of course they
correctly.
freaking
So,
do, dude.
and they've already got Otani and Yamamoto. So, and obviously a large Japanese population in LA to begin with, and so it just feels like another situation where the rich get richer.
Right.
And it makes a lot of sense for him too if he wants to be in that kind of situation, right? There has been some talk that he doesn't want to be in a major market, that he got a lot of heat pitching in Japan, and that the media was on him a lot and the fans were on him a lot, and that he may want a smaller market. I'll believe that when I see it.
Right.
Especially when you're coming over and you're making league minimum. Don't you want as many opportunities to make more money? In LA is that place.
You'd certainly think that would be the case. So we'll see how much that holds when the talks really start in earnest.
Once he signs, the price is going to go through the roof. Currently, his ADP in draft champions, and I'm just lowering it to draft champions right now.
Yeah, just go with the easiest way to look at it.
Is 275. However, that's with a min pick of 32.
Oh my God! And you're right. When Roki Sasaki signs,
yeah,
that's going to go through the roof. I'm not saying it's going to be an ADP of 38. Would you say 38? I don't think
32. Yeah,
ADP, but like it's going to be.
My guess is he's top 100, and if you're putting him top 100, that means you're drafting him around guys like Freddie Peralta and Bailey Ober and Hunter Green and Logan Webb and Tanner Bybee, Grayson Rodriguez, Joe Ryan. Like I'm not taking him over any of those guys. And so because we never know how these guys are going to translate to begin with.
Right.
We definitely don't know how a young guy who dealt with injuries last year is going to handle the workload increases that come with the major leagues.
We saw how Yamamoto dealt with it, right? Like he actually ended up getting nicked up. So yeah.
And I think the Dodgers will be really, really careful with him because they're going to have, or whatever team has him, will be really, really careful with him.
We do assume it's going to be them, but yes.
When I do my projections on him, they'll be good projections, but they'll only be for like 120 innings. And so I just can't imagine that makes him a top 40 starter for me next year, which is where he's going to be going, I think. And so I am probably going to be out on Sasaki for this year.
I think I will be too, especially with that, like the price point you're saying right now. If I can get him, post 250, sure, but that's not going to last very long. I do think now, or at least even before, it was announced, is the best time to draft him, of course, because we know the price is only going to go up and up.
Well, let's do a quick would you rather.
Okay, let's do it.
With the right
ADP range, right?
Yeah, right at 250 is Ranger Suarez.
Sasaki.
If you move up a little bit to 235, you get Nick Lodolo.
Sasaki.
A little bit above that at 230 is Jackson Jobe.
Now, my Tigers homerism starts tingling a little bit. And I'm a
guy who may only have 120, 130 innings in the majors.
So that's like equal there. But then we got a guy who's pitched in the majors, albeit very, 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 very little. But he got that little flavor, got that little taste. I would go Joe.
Okay. A really interesting one. I'm a little surprised his ADP is this low. Jeffrey Springs is at 214 right now.
Ooh, that's gonna be a spring riser for sure. No pun intended there. Because I think as people kind of get, because we're seeing the Rasmussen love start to shine through, and I think that when people start to kind of remember Springs and be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's get him back on track and boost him up there. Although Rasmussen's actually at 273, I thought he'd be a little bit higher there too. I took him I took him in our Gladiator at 309 from Arizona that we did. So yeah, I think I would take Springs.
Yeah, I would take Springs for sure
So,
there.
we're not out on Sasaki, but we're not like dying to get him right now. There's probably always going to be someone more aggressive on Sasaki than
Yeah.
both Justin and I in any given draft room. All right, let's talk about Baltimore. The great Baltimore is moving. Now they're not just undoing it, but they are moving the wall back in, the left field fence. And immediately Cole Irvin said, I'm out. I'm not doing that crap. He went to the KBO, which is so funny because it looks like it's directly related. I don't think it is, but hey, if it is, it's smart because he would not succeed in previous Camden. And again, this is not just reverting back to previous Camden, but it is going to be a change. The wall will still begin at the previous 333 foot mark, just to the right of the left field pole, and then move back to an angle of a 370 foot crevice. But then the rest of the wall over to the bullpen area will be pulled in at varying distances between 9 and 20 feet. So instead of needing to clear parts of the former wall that were once at 384 and 398, the deeper parts will only be 374 and 376. So 10 to 20 feet, depending, or 9 to 20 as they mentioned there in the article there. And that's again from MLB Trade Rumors. So snap judgment here. I want to start with the pitchers, not the hitters. Because we were already interested in their hitters, right? Because they're so good that we don't care about the wall. But I will ask you about some key right-handers. What about the pitchers? At first blush, does this move them down in any significant, tangible way? If you're talking about like a Grayson Rodriguez, let's start with him specifically because he's like the dude right now. If Burns doesn't come back, does this change your outlook on him? He's picked 96 right now in Draft Champions. Grayson Rodriguez with the new wall, yay or nay?
I mean, I'll still take a gamble on him at that spot. I'm just less enthused. He did have some homer issues, though. I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, and I have not, I'm still working on hitter prediction, so I have not dug into Grayson Rodriguez. I feel like a lot of his home runs came early.
Right, he had some struggles early.
Yeah, so yeah, he had. Well, I mean, I guess not really, but I mean, I think the harder part for me with Grayson.
That was last year. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Wasn't it last year that he started off horribly and then got back on track?
He also started off poorly this year and then got back on track as well. But I mean, I think my bigger issue on Grayson Rodriguez has nothing to do with the wall and has just more to do with him, not pitching at the end of the season and being injured. So I'm probably not going to have a lot of Grayson Rodriguez unless he drops in price. But I'm so tired of like every year it feels like things have to change somewhat. I just want one off season where they're not messing with shit.
Like it's hard enough to do year to year projections on things, right? Because we know players are going to change and stuff. But then you start adding all these variables that we don't necessarily know how to handle with the ball, with the bases.
I'm honestly gonna wait until I'll probably just like put off my Baltimore projections for a while and then wait for like Derek Carty to like come out and like tell us like, okay, well, these are the guys that are gonna benefit. These are the guys that are gonna be hurt by it. Because like he's just so smart, and the other guys in the industry who do like the projections with that kind of stuff are just so much smarter than me. And so I'll rely heavily upon them.
I feel that.
I'm not like, I mean, there are obviously going to be certain hitters that are interesting to me.
Let's shift there. Well, okay. Before we go there, other pitchers. They're kind of guys that were boosted from the park, right? You started to care more about a Dean Kramer and Albert Suarez, excuse me. What about like Kincaid Povich, who is an intriguing rookie but had some issues? Any of the Zach Eflin will be there for a full year. Any of those guys having tangible changes based on this news?
I think the one for me that really gets hurt by this is Dean Kramer. Like Kramer, like really struggles with the long ball on the road, and was protected by that park with those walls being back so far. Absolutely. So I think, and he was the guy that I really like, kind of the base skills of with the caveat that he's got a homer problem. now he's no longer going to be as protected at home. That is concerning for me and will be reflected in my projections when they come out. I'm not as worried about Albert Suarez. Suarez just doesn't give up a ton of home runs. Like I'm not super worried about that. I'm not super worried about Eflin too. I just think Eflin is a really good pitcher who, ran into some bad luck last year. So I think I'm back in on the Eflin bounce back more than likely.
Too.
Yeah,
like he's like a buy the dip guy, right? Like when he had the breakout,
yeah,
it was kind of tough to want to buy at full price, even though I was in. So I'm not trying to backtrack and say I wasn't in on Eflin last year. I was. I thought most of what he did with Tampa Bay was sustainable. He did come back to the pack a bit, but now with the price coming back down, I think I will be more aggressive.
And I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance too, like his price drops even more after this.
For more more concern that people say, oh, now he's going to be pushing out the top 200 or something. He's 170 on the button right now, Zach Eflin.
Yeah, but his max pick is 223. So I think you're right. If he dumps outside of the top 200, I'll have all of his Zach Eflin shares.
Yeah, I will be heavily in at post 200 for Zach Eflin. Okay,
like he didn't even have a bad year last year. I just think the strikeouts were down, but like 359, 115, ERA whip, like 134 strikeouts and 165 innings. Like
right? Like, yeah. And so in terms of like dollar value, it looks like a big plummet, but it's 6 wins. Yeah, the whip was up, but the ERA was up negligibly, 9 points. That's nothing.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the whip goes from 102 to 115, and that's a jump, but like I'm okay with that. I'm with you on Eflin. Let's go to their hitters. I got to start with the big one, not their biggest hitter, but the big one who is kind of known as the poster boy who was eaten up by the park. Ryan Mountcastle hits 33 homers, and then 22, 18, and 13. Yeah. The wall has very clearly hurt him. There's been jokes even that like this was entirely because of him, or that like he's out there in a construction hat helping move the wall in. Does this change your outlook on somebody like Ryan Mountcastle? And if so, to like what degree?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one that I'm really, really interested in terms of potentially buying low on, especially depending on the price, right? Like right now, Mountcastle is going pick 303. That feels pretty close to free. I know it's not free, but that feels pretty close. If you're in a 10-team league or even a 12-team league, that is pretty close to free. I don't think if he does jump up a little bit, I don't think it's going to be a ton. And I think this would be a nice little buying opportunity. I definitely, again, want to wait until I kind of hear how, certain players individually.
Wouldn't you be sorry to interrupt you? Wouldn't you want to buy now though at the discount in case absolutely. Like the Derek Carty news says he's going to hit 35 this year or something?
Yeah, because like, I mean, when you're looking at, corner bats or first base bats outside of pick 300, you're looking at like, Tyler Soderstrom or Jonathan Arenado or, Josh Bell. Like, I mean, those aren't guys I dislike necessarily.
Exactly. Compelling
it's not moving the needle in the way that a guy like Ryan Mountcastle, who's going to be batting the middle of a good Orioles lineup, could. So
with previous 30 home runs in his back pocket.
Yeah, definitely a guy that I'm looking at picking up or going for right now, just on, the chance that he bounces back to a 20-plus homer season. The problem with Mountcastle, I think, obviously the wall hurts him. I think he's just a league average power guy, or maybe even below league average power guy. And I think the dead ball hurt him too last year. So, we don't know what the ball is going to be like, but the walls moving in for him in left field definitely help.
Yeah, I think that absolutely makes sense for Ryan Mountcastle. I'll be eager to see where his price goes as we start to get into more of the fantasy season, which usually starts late January, early February. Us freaky diehards are the ones drafting in the winter, which makes it for tighter rooms too. And so you can see some favorites get pushed up in the community. I wonder if Mountcastle will become one of those guys. Anybody else on the Baltimore that you're like keyed in because of this, or do they mostly just get like a little decent boost, but nothing too crazy?
I mean, I guess we should talk a little bit about Jordan Westburg. Like, I think like he is a right-handed hitter in that park. He's a guy that I wasn't a big fan of coming into last year. And I kept kind of, even though he was playing really well, I kept kind of like pushing, like, I don't really think he's this good. The ball's moving for him, I think, is really, really important. Like,
Certainly helps.
I think he's one of these guys again that has kind of fence scraping power. And with them moving those walls in, though, that fence scraping could turn into a bunch more home runs. If he can stay healthy, he missed a lot of time with injury last year. Maybe we could see a big year from a guy like Westberg. I mean, he is batting lower in the lineup, but that's a pretty good lineup top to bottom. So I am definitely interested in a little bit more interested in Westberg, especially if we get some interesting news from guys like Derek Hardy who are going to be kind of grading out how those wall changes kind of look.
Yeah, and he's already somebody, Westberg is, that does have some of that love kind of built in. We're buying low more on Mountcastle, but Westberg, pick 110 right now, second, third base. Like there's reasons to be excited, and then this just adds to that. Let's say
110 feels too high.
okay, I figured. We'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I won't even give you a hypothetical. It feels pretty rich, right? And I don't hate Westberg
because you can get Marcus Semien at 95. I would much rather have that
personally.
and
I'm on the Semien train.
As we talked about when we were talking about second base before, I think I was talking about it with you on the air. There's kind of there's some richness at the top, and then there's a lot of guys going outside of pick 180 that become really, really interesting. I don't think I'm paying that price for Westberg. So no, maybe not. Hopefully this drives up his price and other people just
there you go. Yeah, then the news comes out, Derek Hardy and company, the other folks that do the modeling of the park changes say, oh my god, Westberg is a sneaky 30 homer guy, he goes to pick 80, and you and I just say, okay, you guys can have that, and we'll get our player around that area cheaper.
The other guy that is a little bit interesting to me is Adley Rutschman, who's a switch hitter.
Rough season where I think he was just worn down for a third to half of it, basically. It was tough. It was tough.
So Rutschman hits more. He has more power when he's hitting righty. And if you look at a spray chart, you can see about 3 or 4 more home runs that might have gone over. If the walls were in a little bit. So Rutschman is one of these guys that I think he may be the guy Mountcastle is probably the guy who piques my interest the most with this move. But Rutschman was the for sure number 1 catcher coming into last year. He had kind of a down season.
He's going I don't think it was not everyone universally agreed, but you and I loved him.
Okay, I mean, I thought he was pretty locked in.
I thought there was still a decent bit. Again, I shouldn't have even argued. I'm an idiot. Go ahead, keep going.
But he had a down year, at least from expectations, right? 19 home runs, hit 250. Man, if he could get to 25, 27 home runs, especially with just a bounce back and then these walls being moved in. He becomes that number 1 catcher potentially again. A little bit more BABIP luck. I kind of love him at pick 65, 66.
Yeah, even at that price point, which is not nothing. I still really love Adley Rutschman. I want players on that team. I almost said pitchers. I obviously meant hitters, but I'll take some of the pitchers too. I'm not totally scared off by some of the pitchers that I do find compelling. I do like Grayson Rodriguez. I do like Cade Povich. Obviously, massively different price points. Bradish, I like him, but I'm not drafting him because he's not going to be available till mid-season. But yeah, we'll see how it goes in Baltimore. Go ahead.
I think for me, one of the things that always happens when we see these kind of moves is people overreacting.
100%.
And so where I'm looking to buy is where people are going to be overreacting, and I think that's going to be on pitchers like Grayson Rodriguez, like Zach Eflin, like Albert Suarez. I think those guys are going to probably get unfairly punished. And I am looking to buy any sort of dip that comes that way.
Totally agree with that, and feel like that could be the market to kind of get in, is to really focus more on their pitchers and sneak in some value there. So I'm with you. Let's continue on. The qualifying offer, and all of that has fully transpired now. We know who's accepted and who declined. Only one person accepted it, and they made sense. There were a few that I thought could, but Nick Martinez taking it does make sense. The part where it maybe doesn't a little bit, you might raise your eyebrow, is that park just doesn't fit pitchers.
Yeah.
But
You're so good on the road.
exactly. And I know we'll talk about it from a fantasy perspective, but I'm talking about from the real life perspective for a moment. Like, he's like, I kicked ass here. I mean, again, he didn't. He did most of it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just comfortable with the coaching staff and everything. Like, there's something to be said for that. And he says,
Comfortable at $21 million.
$21 million, exactly. And it's not his first good year. This wasn't an out of nowhere year. So I can see a world where Nick Martinez says, I'm betting on myself. Since I've come back to Japan, I put up back-to-back mid-threes ERA seasons, now mostly in the bullpen, but it was 3.45 ERA with a 127 whip in 217 innings with San Diego. Again, only 19 starts, mostly relief. But then has another hybrid season this year, 142 innings, does it again, even better than he did with San Diego. And he says, I'll take my 21 mil, which I never thought I could, get, or maybe he did. I don't want to, say he's not confident in himself, but a nice doubling almost of your money this year. Actually, not quite, from 14 to 21 mil. And then if I have another good season, maybe I can get a multi-year deal. The counterpoint to that would be A, you're in Cincy, and B, you're 34. But then the counterpoint is, and then he'll have a qualifying offer hanging around his neck. So who the hell was going to sign him with that? So all in all, even though I understand that the park is scary, I don't blame him for signing it, Nick Martinez. How do you feel about him with another year in Cincy? You mentioned the home road splits. Do you have any love here? Can he do it again? Or are we just too scared of the home park eventually bopping him?
He became a full-time starter as of August 5th.
Mm-hmm.
In that time frame, he threw 61 in the third innings. He had a 2.42 ERA and 53 strikeouts. I'm interested. Obviously, I don't think he's going to do anything close to that, but I just think that he is a really good pitcher, and I think that people will be afraid of Cincinnati. Right. And I think people will be afraid of his age. And I think people are not going to give him the respect that he deserves at this point for just being a really good pitcher. Yes, you're going to have to curate his starts. That is something, you're just going to have to kind of remember.
Who don't you have to do that with these days, right? Yeah. Obviously there's a handful of studs, but for the price that you're paying for Nick Mart, that's okay.
His ADP right now is 328.
Come on.
The next the next starter on that list it's Matthew Boyd.
Who I do like, but I trust Martinez way more.
Yeah, if Matthew Boyd just disappears, no one's gonna be like, oh, okay. I'll take Nick Martinez.
Folks, if he disappears, we have to turn Justin in. He just admitted to possibly abducting.
Yeah,
Matthew
it's gonna happen too. No, he seems like a genuinely great person.
Yeah, I actually like Matthew Boyd quite a bit.
There's a lot of charity work. He seems like one of the nicest guys in Major League Baseball.
Of a dude. But we are just saying, with his injury issues, he hasn't been putting up these, this kind of volume even. And I'm not saying that Nick Martinez is some workhorse, but he's put up 3 straight triple-digit inning seasons, which that's something these days. These are the levels that we're dealing with. So I think his price point won't jump up that much with this, and could even go down, like you mentioned. So I'm in on Nick Martinez, even though he's staying in Cincy.
Mm-hmm.
This one didn't surprise me, but I did want to talk a little bit about Sean Manaea declining, because there was some cold water being thrown around at FPAS about Sean Manaea, and some of it came from our buddy Nick Pollock, who I love, obviously. And when he's negative on somebody, you got to pay attention, because he likes to be positive, right? He won't just lie and say everyone's great or anything, but he takes the positive outlook on things. But he's nervous about the touch and feel aspect of Manaea, that he was in such a groove with the lowered arm angle and all that. And how will that hold after a 6-month hiatus and possible move to a new team? What say you about Sean Manaea here as he declines the QO, which again, we figured he would, but are you nervous about him at all for next year because it wasn't like the core skills didn't change that much. He was just kind of in a groove where the hits weren't falling and he was kind of keeping guys off balance. How do you feel about Manaea for 25?
I almost feel like Manaea is the guy that you should be fading the year after he's good and then buying back in the year after he's bad.
Except that the price isn't crazy though, right? I agree
it's
with
not
the
it's
general
not
principle.
crazy, but he's in a pool of guys that are really interesting to me, right? Like we just talked about
like
Zach Eflin, Luis Heel, Taj Bradley, Nick Pivetta, Christopher Sanchez, Bowden Francis. Like that's a pretty interesting grouping. You also have closers going around there that you go, well, maybe I'll just take, Luke Weaver, right? Like, for me, it's going to depend a lot on where he signs. I mean, he was really protected by that park in New York. I almost hope that in spite of declining that they try to bring him back. Because if he's back in New York, then I'm a lot more interested. We know that he can be comfortable there. We know he can pitch well there. But my fear is he ends up in a place like Boston or a place like that doesn't have a great park, or maybe that he has to kind of get acclimated, and we never love these guys in that first year on the new deal. So I'm a little bit concerned about all of those factors, especially just Manaea has not been a consistent guy throughout his career. I love his mechanics when he's on, but when he gets off, like, he is a disaster.
You highlighted his issues with San Francisco, which I've been parroting ever since, and obviously giving you credit, but you keyed me in because I couldn't figure out why he was so crappy with San Francisco, because, again, his skills were the same. You said how much he hated the hybrid role. 10 starts,
and that was for me, and I were before we were hanging out at a game with a group of people, and we were just chatting. He's like, and talking about Manaea, and I was like, what do you think Manaea does at the end of the season? You think he's gonna opt out and kind of, or are they going to bring him back? And he's like, Manaea hates, like, he loves the park, he loves the area, he hates being used in the hybrid role, like he just can't stand it.
And
it
showed. Look at how comfortable he was in New York. Now we feel pretty confident that he'll sign somewhere that won't do that to him, right? I'm sure that's the first guarantee he'll get. Put me in a regular role. But again, Nick Pollock's issues was like that arm angle change stuff is a touch and feel thing where you can get in a groove and ride it, but then do you lose that when you're not pitching for 6 months? So we'll revisit him when he re-signs, but I have some nerves after talking with not just Nick, but a few other people at First Pitch Arizona, and a lot of them came in not overwhelmingly negative, but more of like, push that ERA back up to the high threes, push that whip up to like 118, 120. And then how do you feel about Manaea at pick 170? Maybe not as
I'm okay with it if it does start to inch back up there, right? For me, the bigger issue becomes like, do we get the Manaea we saw in San Diego, which was a 496? Like, that's like, you can, like, if the pitcher you took at pick 180 gives you a 3.78 ERA, like, you don't love it. But, like, that doesn't hurt you, especially when you're getting 170 or 180 innings and a ton of strikeouts with it, right? It's when you have the disaster season, and that has to be in the cards and part of kind of the risk profile of a guy like Manaea is, and not to mention injuries. Like, he's been relatively healthy the last few years, but, like, it's a guy with a lot of miles on him and a guy who really struggled with health early on in his career. So, I'm a bit more concerned, and like, when you start putting him in that grouping of guys that we were talking about, like, if we did a would you rather, I'm taking Eflin, I'm taking Heel, I'm probably taking Taj Bradley. Probably Pivetta is the one that I question.
There we go. I didn't plan to talk about him because we're not going through all the QL guys. He's one I thought could take it. I thought both Knicks had a chance to take it, but Pivetta said no. They're almost at equal ADPs. I know you don't know where either of them are, but I'm going to put you to the test. Got to take one today. Who are you taking, Manaea or Pivetta?
I think I'm taking Manaea just because Manaea has been healthy recently. I do think that Pivetta,
I am too, by the way.
I think Pivetta is a more consistent pitcher when he is on the mound. The problem is he isn't on the mound. And for me, like, that speaks volumes, right? Like, you literally cannot volume your stats, your strikeouts and your wins without being on the mound. And Pivetta has not been able to consistently. So, like, I would probably take Manaea if I had to choose between the two, but my guess is neither end up on any of my early drafted teams, and
nowhere
then
for me.
Yeah, and then I have to wait and see where they land. And the problem is when they land, their prices will inevitably go up. Like
We
it
talk
really
about it every
doesn't
year.
matter. It really doesn't matter where they land unless they land in Cincinnati, because God knows Colorado's not signing them.
True.
But like their prices will go up, and when their prices go up and they bump up over Rookie of the Year Luis Heel, or up over Zach Eflin, who we've talked about already about being a bounce back, there's no way I'm taking those guys, I'm taking Manaea or Pivetta over guys like that.
That's exactly how I feel. And so, yeah, winter drafts, they're barely on my sheet. Like I won't actually take them off the sheet, because if they fell deep enough, I'd probably take them. But yeah, even when they sign and they get that normal boost that we always talk about in the fall.
Speaking of winter drafts, I am a weak
How many
man.
are you? You son of a bitch! You were supposed to hold off until December.
I was holding off, and then I had a phone call with Vlad Sedler, and we were just kind of bullshitting and catching up, and he was telling me about his drafts, and like literally fucking while we're on the phone, I'm like yeah, I'm not gonna try to jump into too many until I'm done with my projections, as I'm clicking the fucking button. And so I'm signed up for a gladiator right now. That should fill here in the next couple hours. So a slow gladiator, but yeah, I'm a weak man.
In fairness, I might not make it to December either.
Greg, you should just jump into this gladiator that I'm in right now.
I don't think I'm gonna do that, but maybe. Okay. Greg and I are gonna do our 400.
I think there's 4 spots left.
Draft champions. Okay, maybe I'll look at it. Send me the link. God, you're bad influence, dude. Don't you deal with like addiction and stuff? You know the triggers that addicted personality. You're supposed to help people through it, not encourage them.
Oh shit! There's only 1 spot left.
Oh shit! I'm not going to sign up on the show, so if it's not there after the show, I won't take it. But yeah, we signed up for a 400, and he said it might fill next week. So I could be in a draft before December, so technically I might not hold to our pact either. And you know what? That's okay. We're degens, and we love fantasy baseball. So great talk there on the qualifying offer, guys. Oh, the other one I thought maybe, but him not taking it makes me think that he's got a multi-year lined up with them, because Teoscar wants to be in LA so badly that I thought that if he wasn't getting word from them that they could work out a 2 or 3 year deal, that he would just take the QO and guarantee he stays in there. Yeah. Now, obviously there's no guarantees of that, but that's my feeling. So we'll see. There was a small little move, a little trade done, and it's, it's an impactful major league trade. I don't know if it's an impactful fantasy deal, because the Mets did get Jose Siri, who is definitely a talented player, but with some loud skills, namely his power and speed. And we saw it last year, 18-14 on the homers and steals, 25-12 back in 2023. But he hit 222 in 2023 and 187 this year. He murdered your batting average there. That's a 187 reference. Yeah. But anyway, is that untenable for Jose Siri? Is there anything there? Is he just always going to be such a batting average drain that you can't even get the power and speed now that he's with the Mets?
I mean, I think he's always going to be a batting average drain. Like, should it have been that bad? No, like his XBA was 206. But I mean, this is one of these guys that like he has a just truly atrocious in zone contact rate. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm actually going to look up the comp or a comp for it. While
I want to hear these backup catchers that he's being compared to, because Jose Siri's plate skills are horrendous. Not only does he swing a ton, he has no idea what a walk is. Like, he is the worst of both worlds on that front.
So he was not a qualified hitter.
That's right.
So, but if he had been a qualified hitter, he would have had the lowest in-zone contact rate, and by a mile. His in-zone contact rate was 70.8. The lowest in-zone contact rate in 2024 was Rafael Devers, who had a 76% for qualified hitters.
6 points is a ton in that.
See, he's 6 points lower than Christopher Morel, who we talked about having atrocious in-zone
being
contact.
Horrendous. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We roast him for his lack of contact ability.
He's a defensive guy. And so, like, I'll be really interested to see kind of what the Mets do the rest of the way.
Bader's spot.
Well, To me, this was an interesting move because, like, supposedly they're like really big in on for Juan Soto.
Oh, so then yeah, how's that all work?
So where, like, obviously,
Well,
if Soto's gonna play in right, I
right.
guess.
Yeah.
So I guess
Marte could DH some. They got
yeah,
McNeil penciled in
I think
there.
Marte needs to DH considering
Yeah,
his
because he's
age and
36 at this
injury
point.
history. Like, I think Siri is nothing more than a defensive replacement at this point.
That's kind of what I think. True fourth outfielder, maybe even more of a fifth outfielder, which is
because I mean they have Tyrone Taylor too.
Yeah, and he's going to get pushed if and when they sign Soto.
Yeah,
Move Nimmo back to center. Oh yeah, they can also do that. Move Nimmo to center, back to center, Marte to left, and then Soto takes right. But they might want Marte off the field, which would be good. So then,
I think
if
they
do
need to
sign
preserve a 30. Is Marte 36 at this point?
Yeah, he's 36. They're ripe for a trade if they do sign Soto. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I just want to bring that deal up because it is relevant in like deeper fantasy leagues. But you're saying like don't get hung up on the power speed that Siri delivered.
No,
I don't think he's going to play as much, and
Yeah.
he just blasts your batting average. And
Yeah.
like, do I think he's better than 187? Sure, not that much though. Like
Yeah.
barely 200s. So that's only a 13-point difference.
You know, I talk about it all the time, right? Like when you get a below 80% zone contact, you start having, unless you have like some sort of elite skill to, that makes up for that, right? Like Rafael Devers makes up for that. Like even Christopher Morel, like he can make up for it. I don't know that he's going to forever, but
crazy power.
Yeah, like Siri doesn't have anything that can make up for a 70% in zone contact. Like it's just that is untenable. You're not going to be able.
He's got some speed, but like even Carlos Gomez, if you
remember him, he's only a major leaguer because he's an elite defender. That's only the only reason he is.
Carlos Gomez looks at his defense or looks at his plate skills and goes, "Dude, you're really bad at plate skills." And we know how Carlos Gomez was too. So it's like that's kind of what we're dealing with here with Siri. He might be forced into action and you'll be tempted to pick him up, but I promise he will hit your batting average too hard to want to do that. So resist. Brusdar Graterol will miss the first half of 2025 with shoulder surgery, and I realize he's been almost exclusively a middle reliever to this point, but there was some speculation that maybe he could finally emerge into that ninth inning role. Does seem like they've maybe been grooming him to be that guy despite his lack of swing and miss stuff, even though he throws 100 like crazy, but he throws those 100-mile-an-hour sinkers that like Jordan Hicks throws, which are good, but they don't really generate swings and misses. So he already missed basically this year, 7 innings. So this is now going to be back-to-back missed seasons. I'm less concerned with Graterol because I kind of think he can be off your radar completely, even in super deep leagues.
He is.
But I wonder if this pushes your stock up for Michael Kopech, who I drafted in the Gladiator draft in Arizona. So I technically broke our pact even before that. But
you've already had a draft.
I thought the Arizona League didn't really count. I thought that was a freebie that I could do since it was a Gladiator. But
I didn't even do it this year.
You're right, you didn't. So I already broke the pact even before you. Yeah. But does this give you confidence in Mr. Kopech now as the dude? Do you think they're going to go get somebody? What do you think here with the Graterol injury news?
I feel like they have to go get somebody, right? Like, I love Kopech.
Get somebody and let Kopech like still be part of that too, right?
Absolutely. I love Kopech. But the one thing the Dodgers have not had in recent years is just like a shutdown closer. So, like one guy that they know they can rely upon. And if you look at their roster, like, especially if they get Sasaki, like, and all of a sudden, like that rotation is pretty set. Like, I think there is a really good chance that the one thing they really need to add, well, I guess is an outfielder, potentially like a right-handed bat outfielder. But I mean, I do think they're going to get Teoscar back too. So like, like that's going to be that guy. He can be that dude. Like, I do think they just need one big piece in the back end of that bullpen. So, the question is like, is it a guy that is going to for sure take over the role or not?
Right. I think it's gonna be more of that like part of the mix type guy as opposed to somebody who comes in and yoinks the whole role away from Kopech.
Yeah. The hard part is like, who's that guy? And
That's a good question.
I just don't know.
Well, I don't know that they're going to go get someone big, right? Because big reliever contracts aren't generally a good idea.
They're not a good idea, but you know what they are? They're short term, and a lot of that money that they've deferred off is long term.
And they're a luxury for good teams. So I will acknowledge
they've got a lot of money for a 3-year contract or for a 2-year contract.
Yeah, they could get. Hey, well, here's one. Now this guy,
Jeff Hoffman, just sounds so good in LA.
How perfect would that be?
Yeah.
How perfect would Jeff Hoffman be there?
Yeah.
Was that the guy here?
Oh, okay.
Yes. No, you read my mind. You read my mind. Yeah, that would be nuts. I don't want them to get that because I want them to chill out on being so good. And I know you hate their guts as a Giants fan, but that fits so well. And that is actually a reliever I wouldn't be against signing. Like I said, you got to be careful with reliever contracts. They can be sketchy when you're doing 4 years, but if they can get like a really strong 2 or a 2+1 or something where maybe they can get out of that 3rd year if he busts for some reason, Hoffman looks insane. I will bring up this guy too. This would be more of to join Kopech. But is there a Kenley reunion?
That would probably make a lot of sense. I think the only problem with that is I don't know how you bring in Kenley and not just make him the dude, right?
But
especially with his history in LA.
Yeah. Maybe they're comfortable saying he can be the 9th inning only dude. Yeah. And then we still want Kopech to be the stopper and he'll still collect 12 saves over the course of the year. The way Hoffman did this year.
I think one of the most talked about things that never came to fruition over the course of the last 2 seasons was when's Kenley being traded back to LA? It never happened. And we all thought at one point that it would happen. And so, I think that one definitely makes a lot of sense. As well. Especially because you could just give him a big 1-year deal. You could give him, at this point.
You don't have to go more than one with Kenley at all.
He's 37. You could give him $16 million and
you go 120 if you just want to give your dude enough money to say automatic yes. Just give him 20 again. Yeah, it's a little bit of an overpay, but if they wanted to, they could even do that for Kenley. So I still am I was already interested in Kopech, so this Graterol news doesn't increase my interest. It just keeps me interested, but I'm with you. I'm not blind to the fact that they're probably going to bring somebody or some bodies in. And if it's a Hoffman, then I would definitely lower Kopech. If it's a Jansen, I would definitely lower Kopech. But if it's guys that are more of the reclamation types like they got with Kopech, then I wouldn't necessarily move him down. If they just kind of stock with volume instead of a standout, then I would actually push Kopech up. So we'll see how that goes.
The other guy that I thought oh man, this would be the perfect dude for the Dodgers bring in and just kind of they don't have to do much to fix them, but Carlos Estevez, they could probably
that's another great call.
Our crowdsourced results on what we think or what the Fangraphs community thinks he's going to get is 2 years for $18 million. That's the perfect guy the Dodgers could bring in and just he goes back to being a fantastic closer in LA, and I hate myself.
Yep. No, I think you came up with 2 of the perfect names there that they could get to really twist the knife for Dodgers haters and rich getting richer type of vibe there. So we'll keep tabs on that obviously all winter. The closer market's always a wild one. Hell, when we draft you can draft the day before opening day and the closer market's still crazy, let alone when you're drafting in November and December. Justin, what the hell are the Angels doing, dude? Is it okay? I know you're in California. I know you're not in LA or Anaheim.
I'm not.
But is it January and February there already? Because these are January and February signings and trades. Trade for Jorge Soler. Nothing against him, but he doesn't do anything for them. Sign Kyle Hendricks and Travis d'Arnaud. What the hell are these moves for LA?
Don't forget they also picked up Scott Kingery and Kevin Newman.
Oh, my bad. The big Kingery news.
I kind of see what they're doing a little bit here is
sort of filling in holes. But again, aren't these the guys you signed in January when all the dust is settled?
Sure, but you can just pick them up now for
but it'd be cheaper is my implication. I'm implying that wouldn't they be
Yes,
cheaper when
I
their
think it would be
market?
cheaper.
So that's
You know,
all I'm
they're
saying there.
absolutely probably would be cheaper. But like I think they're just trying to figure out, okay, if we can fill these holes for, for affordable prices now, then maybe we know exactly how much we can spend on a big dude.
Right.
If they're going to spend on a big dude. I don't even know if they are. Like
I don't know if they are either. I think they might just
like
do a few more of these stupid moves.
yeah, I honestly agree. Like I don't think like you look at their roster too, and you kind of go like it's a bunch of like, but it's also kind of somewhat deep at this
It's
point.
like competent, right? Yeah, with
Yeah,
capable major leaguers. It's boring. We're not saying it's good, but you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, capable major leaguer, capable major league, right? So curious
I
on
think
this.
another starting pitcher. Like, could they
Yeah,
be in on Blake Snell? Like, maybe that's like the dude that they decide they're going to spend their money on this year, or Corbin Burns. But um, this is such a bad team. I just feel bad
they're
for
so
Mike
terrible.
Trout. Like I just
I do too.
and that Rendon contract is just like weighing them
And
down.
it
Like
was
it's
so
just
bad at the time too. It was
it
obvious. This
was it
is
was
not
really
a
bad. Yeah.
hindsight situation. So Logan O'Hoppe dealt with sore knees at the end of the year, and he wanted to play through it because he's that kind of guy. He's that prototypical gamer catcher. Teams love it. Teammates love that stuff, especially when it's not actually eyewash. Like he really would have no problem kind of playing through stuff. Sometimes that goes negatively for the player though, where it's like, okay, you should know your body, and like if you're only
Yeah.
80% of yourself, you're better off coming out. But he is that
Especially in a
kind of
lost year.
right, right. But he is that kind of guy who will push through everything. It seems like they might have gotten Travis d'Arnaud to have like a really competent backup so that they could say,
Yeah.
we don't have to push O'Hop, run him into the ground. We can actually give him days off, and we're not jumping down to like some terrible second catcher. Where does TDA fit your plans as a draft? I feel like he has one big run every year where he looks like the
Yeah.
best player in baseball for like a week or 10 days. And then you look at the end of the year and you're like, okay, it was above average hitting with some pop, and then the average kind of lands where it lands. Same thing again for age 36, Travis d'Arnaud, or does the playing time continue to dwindle to where it's like not enough plate appearances? Are you drafting Travis d'Arnaud anywhere?
Maybe as a third catcher in a DC.
Okay, I like
Like
that.
that's the place where I'm drafting him. I'm not in even just a traditional 15-team league. He's not on my roster. I
Same.
just don't know that there's enough playing time. And you combine the signing with the Soler trade, Soler is just going to be DHing.
Exactly.
There's just no extra plate appearances at DH, or at least not very many extra plate appearances at DH for d'Arnaud to kind of pick up, those that extra volume. So I don't think there's going to be enough volume unless there is something wrong with O'Hoppe. And if that's the case, then I'll pick him up off the wire when O'Hoppe goes down, or if O'Hoppe goes down. I'm not hoping it does, but I'm
Right,
just saying,
right.
like,
You're just saying if it happens.
if that shoulder issue pops back up or something else pops back up, then I'll go running to the wire and grab d'Arnaud. But ultimately, DC's is the only place I'm considering d'Arnaud as like a third, fourth catcher type dude.
Yeah, I think that's a great fit, but it is the only one that I can really conceivably come up with for Travis d'Arnaud that I would be interested in too. And it is DC season, so it is the
Yeah.
time to maybe get yourself some Travis d'Arnaud. And Hendricks doing anything for you, even in the DC?
I don't think he is necessarily.
He's innings at least, but it is pretty bad.
It's, I mean, like, is it really innings though? Because I mean, he's had
Fair
130
point.
this last year, 137 the year before, 84 the year before that. Like, he hasn't hit 140 innings since 2021.
That's a great
and
point.
now you're talking about a guy who doesn't really volume and doesn't get strikeouts. Like,
Kyle Hendricks or a Rocky?
I think I'm going with a Rocky, depending on which one we're talking about. Like, I mean, I want to see like where some of these Rockies are going.
While you're looking that up, I'll query you with another that you can maybe answer off the dome. Kyle Hendricks or a teammate that isn't Soriano or Reed Detmers. So basically Tyler Anderson, Jack Kohanowitz, Chase Silseth.
I mean, I'll take Anderson.
What about your boy Jose Suarez? in a
Yeah,
decent. It's like
I'll
round
take it.
42.
I'll take a gamble on Suarez.
Okay,
Like
so you're
I
just
don't
not
know
a
that he's going to
Hendricks.
be. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know either.
absolutely.
He would have to move back into the rotation, but I was just trying to come up with names that you
Yeah.
might be interested in.
Um,
Yet, go ahead on the Colorado pitchers.
I mean, I'll take a gamble on depending on I don't know where Reed Detmers is going right now, but like I'll take a gamble on all of the rotation pieces in LA over a guy like Hendricks,
Me
right?
too.
Like Soriano is interesting. He showed some upside.
I love him.
You know, we know what Reed Detmers is at this point, but like I don't think you have to pay a ton for it.
I
Um,
know.
you know, like Jack I don't
Kohanowitz.
Kahanowitz, thank you. Like he's an interesting dude. Like Davis Daniel could be in this
Yeah, I'd
rotation.
take
He
him over
showed some
Hendricks too.
interesting flashes. So like yeah, like I mean, I'm gonna take a lot of those guys you know, over Hendricks. And then we go over these Colorado guys like Ryan Feltner going pick 703 feels free. He
You
is
know
free.
I'd take
Yeah,
him
like
over that.
I'm
And
absolutely even
I
Kyle
can't quit
Freeland,
him.
like you know, like 737, Herman Marquez should
Marquez,
be
yeah.
healthy and rebounding. Like even Austin Gomber, like it was Kyle Quantrill. Give me all those guys over or Kyle Hendricks.
I think that's
Like
absolutely fair. Like I know we're beating up Kyle Hendricks a bit, but yeah, it's just I just don't see any
I mean,
fantasy heat. And you bring up the
congratulations on to Kyle Hendricks on getting
right.
you know
No
a
shade to you on that.
contract. Like I
No shade to you
totally
on that.
yeah. Like but he's 35. His K per 9 was below 6. Like I don't know how he got the money he got, but
I know.
it's only
It's
2.5
great.
million. But like
Yeah,
yeah, like still like I I don't care about it. Like there's no world in which Kyle Hendricks is on any of my teams this year.
same. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. We did have one more talking point on there, but I really have to pee, and your time, your time limit is actually coming up here soon too. So we'll cap it there. It was just gonna be Nolan Arenado dangled in trade talks. Maybe he'll be traded by the next time we talk,
Yeah,
but we
that'd be
will talk
interesting.
more about that. I am curious if you think there's anything there worth jumping back in on with Nolan Arenado. But it's great to get back in the saddle, talk some baseball. Might still have some sporadic scheduling, but we are back. You won't have these big 2, 3, 4 week lulls anymore, barring somebody getting sick or something the way you did. So great to be talking with you here in the off season. Like I said, look for everything over at Fangraphs to start tuning up when we get those. When we get the rankings start posted in December, start to see more articles, more podcasts. Very excited for our winter brethren to take the journey with us because the off season, I have a blast with it. Obviously, I love
Yeah.
the grind of the season, but the off season grind, it's different, but it's still really, really fun. And as I mentioned, by the end of the year, I needed a little bit of a breather. So I'm happy to be in off season mode. The only thing I don't want is this cold weather, Justin. You can have that crap.
It's cold and wet here. I don't
Yeah,
want
the
any of it.
wet, I don't want any of that. I'll take the
Yeah.
chill over that. But between the two, yeah, I'm totally with you. But anyway, great talking with you. We'll talk next week.
Take it easy.